Good afternoon. My name is Will Miller from the Philosophy Department. I'm standing in for Brian Perkins to do introductions this afternoon. And I guess I'd like to perform some of my role as local historian. I came here in 1969 as a new member of the faculty. Michael Parenti, our speaker today, arrived in 1970. After having been a visiting member of the Political Science Department at the University of Illinois in Champaign-Urbana. In the spring of 1970, which, to put it in historical context, was the spring of the Kent State and Jackson State massacres at the height of the anti-war movement in the United States. Michael Parenti, then on the faculty at the University of Illinois, attempted to stop a garbage truck from being backed over a number of students who were engaged in a sit-in at the university at the time. For his efforts, he was assaulted by a member of the local police force in Champaign-Urbana, who was three, all of whom were wearing riot gear, face masks, shields, helmets. One of them, after laying Michael's head open with a club, accused him of assaulting, Michael, of having assaulted the police in a kind of Orwellian inversion. Having been assaulted by the police, he was then accused of assaulting them. Was tried in a notorious kangaroo court proceedings and found guilty of assaulting an officer in that activity. He already had a contract to teach here, so he came to the University of Vermont in the fall of 1970. Before he arrived, the Burlington Free Press and the local media had picked up the stories from Urbana and had already begun to vilify him and condemn him and judge him on insufficient evidence for his activities in Urbana. So even before he arrived on the campus, he was already a celebrity, though not by circumstances of his own choosing. While he was a member of the campus for the 2 years from 1970 to 1972, he brought to the campus his insight into the imperial character of the war in Vietnam and a model of courage to do something about the character of that war. He played a key role in campus-wide teach-ins, in radical student organizing, and he was a model for many of us who were deeply opposed to the war and had not yet moved effectively and in an organized way to counter it. He was at the time one of the most published and best known scholars on the campus, and he was superbly qualified for reappointment at the end of his 2-year contract in 1972. The entire campus community in the review process strongly supported his reappointment, faculty, students, and the administration, up to the office of the president. Traditionally, the UVM Board of Trustees had until that time accepted the recommendations of that review process and essentially rubber stamped them. The trustees played no active role in deciding reappointment and tenure decisions. In Michael's case, however, the precedent was broken. The trustees reached down and overturned the decision of the entire university and decided in a vote of 15-4, a vote taken in this very room, ironically, in December of 1971, to not renew Michael Parenti. The reasons they gave, since he was eminently qualified by all the standing requirements, publications, teaching, community service, the reasons they gave consisted in inventing something new called professional conduct, which no one had ever heard of before and which Michael had not met in the eyes of the trustees. Let me give you an example of what they call professional conduct, unprofessional conduct. Michael was invited to be the guest speaker at the Burlington Rotary Club. The Burlington Rotary Club opens its evening events with a pledge of allegiance to the flag. Michael didn't pledge allegiance to the flag and gave a talk instead on how, as long as the line with liberty and justice for all was not true, he would work very hard to make it true, and when it was true, he would be the first to take the pledge. Until such time, it would be hypocritical to do so. The trustees decided not pledging allegiance was unprofessional conduct. Another reason given was carrying a National Liberation Front flag in a demonstration on Church Street in downtown Burlington. The National Liberation Front flag, more commonly known in the press as the Viet Cong flag, was the flag that increasingly, for many of us, had become the flag of the side we should have been on in that war, and not the side we should have been making war against. Michael was carrying a flag that represented the commitments and convictions of a great many of us on and off campus. These and the other reasons they gave were all blatantly unconstitutional. That is, these are cases of politically protected speech and action which they had no basis for firing him for. The trustees gave officially at the time justifications that Michael's anti-business attitudes, anyone with a critique of capitalism is guilty of an anti-business attitude, that Michael's anti-business attitudes were unacceptable to the Board of Trustees, and it was said that he was bad for the image of the university. I take it an image that entails being pro-business, certainly not being critical. The year that Michael was fired, the university handbook was covered with its statement of academic freedom on the front and back covers, as if by publishing that statement they could undo the effects of the firing. The administration, the president, and most of the members of the faculty overwhelmingly agreed that it was a very sad day in the history of the University of Vermont when the trustees were able successfully to remove Parenti's analysis and point of view and voice from this campus. Therefore, it gives me great pleasure, since the intent of the board was to silence Michael and see that he would never speak here again, it gives me great pleasure to thwart their intentions and welcome today's speaker, Professor Michael Parenti.